Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and this is the channel where I went to business school so you didn't have to, and today we are talking about Palantir Technologies PLTR stock and how they recently had a $47 price target from this particular analyst. And we're going to talk about how Palantir Technologies landed a contract with the CDC for around $5.3 million. For more updates on Palantir Technologies and their PLTR stock, remember to go and smash that like button right now, subscribe if you are new, comment your thoughts down below about the PLTR stock. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's stories. So Palantir Technologies currently trades for around $10.39 per share. Its ticker symbol is PLTR. The low-end analyst price target for the next 12 months for the PLTR stock is $9, which does trade below with the current stock price of Palantir, so Palantir could continue to fall. However, the average consensus among analysts is a $16.28 price target for the next 12 months, and the high-end analyst price prediction is $25.30. Out of the 10 analysts that are currently covering the stock, one analyst says that Palantir Technologies is a strong buying opportunity, 5 analysts say to hold the stock because it has great future potential, and 4 analysts say that according to the current market environment that investors should sell the stock. However, recently, Palantir Technologies landed a contract with the CDC, also known as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, for expanding its role specifically in its supply chain efforts regarding the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. This contract is a good-sized contract worth around $5.3 million, and it's a 6-month contract, which means that Palantir is going to be awarded this money in a very short amount of time. So this is fantastic news for Palantir Technologies. Also, the Department of Health and Human Services selected Palantir previously in the middle of 2020 to power their Tiberius platform, which was originally configured for the vaccine distribution, but now the CDC is directly contracting Palantir Technologies for their supply chain efforts regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. So it's always good news when we see Palantir Technologies continuously landing more contracts. But what about the price target of $47? Well, we're going to get into that. We also have the price forecasts for Palantir from the current year of 2022 all the way to 2030, which means that Palantir Technologies, according to this author, thinks that Palantir could reach almost $160 by 2030. However, first let's go over the data and the fundamentals of this overall company. So Palantir Technologies has fallen around 75% in their PLTR stock price from their all-time highs. And recently the stock price has been falling due to macroeconomic factors, the threat of Russia invading Ukraine, interest rates rising, investors taking money out of the stock market and putting it into the bond market, as well as other investors taking their money out of growth stocks and putting it into value stocks. So we have 4 things working against Palantir, all on top of their Q4 results, which were actually good despite they missed their earnings per share, or EPS, which came in at around 2 cents per share when it was projected to come in at around 4 cents per share, and that gave more downside opportunity for the stock price. However, their other metrics, such as Palantir's revenues, were very, very healthy, and Palantir's business is continuously expanding, which will eventually lead them to profitability. So the EPS was really the only bad thing about their earnings report. However, investors nonetheless decided to rotate out of growth stocks like Palantir Technologies and invest into much safer companies considering the current market environment. But if we just look at Palantir as a company, the company's efficiency is improving and their stock-based compensation is actually decreasing as time goes on, which is fantastic news to see. So investors should actually be very excited about this, not taking money out of Palantir Technologies, but actually trying to lower their average cost for the overall PLTR stock price. The stock price is also reaching a great support level of around $10, because that's the price of Palantir Technologies when they DPO'd on the public stock market. So honestly, if you can get Palantir Technologies at $10 or more, ideally around $8, that would be ideal for long-term stockholders. The reason for this is because the company is rapidly growing, and according to this author, the PLTR stock is going to be a top performer for future years. So if you are not an aggressive long-term investor, this stock may not be for you. Just to put it into perspective, we can see on the growth chart over here that originally, since they DPO'd, their stock price actually quadrupled in price, and right now the stock has either consolidated or started to cool off due to various macroeconomic factors, and investors always fail to remember that. The company literally returned 400% to shareholders if you took profits at the correct time. So it's really not Palantir's fault for you not taking profits at the correct time, and now because you're losing money, you really really have no ground to stand on to say that Palantir is a bad company because fundamentally they are absolutely phenomenal. Now, lucky for us, when Palantir's market cap was worth around $65 billion, I would consider Palantir extremely overvalued then. However, now the current market cap trades for around $20 billion, which makes investing into Palantir Technologies much more reasonable, specifically for long-term aggressive growth investors such as myself. Palantir was trading at around 230 times their earnings and around 50 times their sales. And ideally, we would want both of these metrics way lower, and that's what we're getting right now. Because now Palantir Technologies is trading at a price to sales ratio of around 10, which is a substantial discount from the ratio being 50, so clearly now is a much better time to buy the company, which is why when it originally quadrupled or even tripled in price, that's when you really wanted to take profits. But according to this author, now is not the time to take profits, now is the time to get in for a long-term position on Palantir Technologies. But again, proper risk management says that we shouldn't allocate more than 5% of our portfolio to a single company. So if Palantir Technologies makes up more than 5% of your portfolio, you are taking on unnecessary risk. The reason why Palantir Technologies is still a great future growth stock is because they're projected to grow at a compounding annual growth rate of over 30% specifically for their revenues until 2025, and investors still don't understand how mind-boggling that actually is. That is fantastic news, because they're growing at a minimum of 30%. Because they brought in around $433 million worth of revenues, which actually represents a 34% increase year over year, not a 30% increase, so they actually had a revenues beat, which is fantastic news. Their commercial segment and their commercial revenues grew by around 47% year over year, which is also fantastic news. And I've been saying forever, literally since I've started to report on Palantir, that Palantir's commercial segment is going to be their bread and butter, and it's going to be the thing that eclipses their revenues for their government contracts. As well, it's going to be the main driver in turning the company profitable. And this is clearly seen at their insane growth rate for their commercial revenues of over 40%. Their adjusted income from operations also came in at around $124 million, which is fantastic news. And even though their earnings per share, or EPS, came in at around 2 cents instead of 4 cents, the company is still going to achieve fantastic EPS throughout the next couple of years. For the full year of 2021, Palantir had a fantastic report, bringing in around $1.54 billion worth of revenues in total, which actually beat their 30% growth rate, because this would actually represent a 41% growth rate. They had amazing adjusted free cash flows, which came in at around $424 million, which beat the original estimate of only $400 million. And if you didn't know, analysts, as well as myself, actually calculate our price targets for Palantir Technologies based on their free cash flow, mainly because we're using an FCF model. And I have multiple videos on that where I actually calculate the price targets for Palantir Technologies if you want to go check that out. This also means that Palantir could achieve profitability between 2024 and 2026, but let's just use 2026 so we are not overly bullish on this particular company. But even at a conservative estimate, Palantir achieving profitability in 2026 is going to be fantastic news for shareholders as well as newer investors. By 2025, Palantir Technologies could be bringing in anywhere from $4.4 billion all the way up to $9 billion worth of revenue, which means at minimum, their revenues are going to increase by around 185% over the next 3 to 4 years. This is going to lead to profitability, and this could cause the overall PLTR stock price to absolutely surge. Now, management is actually in control about when Palantir is actually going to achieve profitability, because what's hurting Palantir's profitability right now is their stock-based compensation. And what that means is basically Palantir is giving stock rewards and incentives to their engineers to either pay them more, keep them, or entice them to build even better platforms for Palantir Technologies. So instead of paying them out of pocket, they are just giving them shares, which that employee will then liquidate and get paid more. However, lucky for us, the stock-based compensation has declined around 40% year over year, and this is going to skyrocket them further toward profitability. So for 2022 and 2023, we can expect fantastic increases in EPS, EBITDA, and a plethora of other factors. So once Palantir gets their stock-based compensation under control, this company could be extremely profitable, and that's why we have extremely bullish price targets according to this author. For instance, for 2022, the price target on average is actually around $16 to $18 right now. By 2023, it's projected that they will achieve around a $25 price target. For 2024, we could expect the stock price to be around $34 on average. For 2025, we have a $47 price target. For 2026, that price target increases to $62, and here's where it gets really insane. By 2027, we have a price target of around $85. By 2028, $108. 2029 would represent a $135 PLTR stock price, and by 2030, we could get a $160 PLTR stock price, which is absolutely insane. We could almost 10x our money in the span of only 8 years, and this would absolutely dwarf the overall market returns. So buying the stock right now at around $10 and waiting until 2030 for the stock price to be trading at around $160 is extremely lucrative for any investor. That is literally a 16 times increase, which is absolutely phenomenal. Imagine buying a stock at $10 per share, waiting for the company to scale into its growth and eventually achieve profitability, and then less than 10 years later, having that same stock which you bought for $10 is now worth $160 per share. That is absolutely phenomenal, and that is what I do all the time being a long-term growth investor. I find companies that have great underlying fundamentals that are trading at a good discount right now. However, Palantir Technologies is only trading at a discount compared with the stock price used to be, because technically right now you are still paying a premium for the PLTR stock price. But still, these price forecasts, according to this author, are very telling, and eventually when Palantir achieves profitability, this stock is going to be extremely lucrative for investors over the long run. But I would love to hear your thoughts and your personal price targets for the PLTR stock down below. Go and smash that like button for more videos like this one, subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in the next YT video.